This is the last part of my attempt to solve paper 12 from October-November 2024. And here I will try to solve the three last questions. As always, any errors here are mine alone. So this question here is a 4-point question explaining why rates of evaporation are different between polar and tropical areas in the world ocean. I now have many students just write, it's warmer in the polar regions than in the tropical regions. And while that is correct, that is not the way to get all 4 points. So let's see how I would get all 4 points here. I will say that the temperature in the tropic is high and constant, while it's cold in the polar regions. As the temperature in the polar regions is lower, the particles have less kinetic energy. I'm hereby referring to the kinetic model. With less kinetic energy, there are fewer water particles evaporating, so less evaporation occurs in the polar region than in the tropical regions. That might be a little clunky way of saying it, but I want to compare so you know there's a difference. That's the 3 points. Then come the last point. During the cold season, the polar region, water is covered by ice, so evaporation is reduced immensely. Our next question also talks about the water cycle and about nutrients. And it says that rivers carry many nutrients to the ocean. Describe the process that causes nutrients at high concentration in the surface water to reach the deeper part of the ocean. I had some students who started writing about runoff. And while that is correct, that is not the answer we are looking for. We are looking for this. Nutrients from runoff end in the surface water of the ocean. The nutrients are used by primary producers and is included in the marine food chains. Over time, feces, dead organisms, and marine snow will fall through the water column to the bottom, and there is hence a downwelling of nutrients. The next question is basically a math question. Do you know how to calculate 6% of something? Can you show your workings? And can you use the correct units? I think you can. That's how it's done. The next question deals with section 6.6, plastic pollution. Plastic bags also enter the ocean from rivers. Some sea life may become entangled in the plastic bags and drown. Describe 2 other impacts of plastic bag on marine ecosystem. So we have to go with something that is not drowning or entanglement. I've gone with that plastic bags are eaten by marine animals. And then I go in turtle, mistake them from jellyfish. This can lead to malnutrition and in some cases death and an accumulation of microplastic in the food chain. Microplastic can carry toxic substances that can damage organisms and accumulate in the food chain. I think this should be enough to get the 2 points. So this is one of the questions that caused quite a few of my students some issues when we did this test run of the exam. The figures show the direction of the wind in a normal year and in a year where we have El Niño effect. And you should then try to outline the formation, not the effect, but the formation of El Niño. So I've written it like this. El Niño is caused by a change in the trade winds. So the winds now blow weaker or change direction towards South America, as we can see in the figure, caused by lower air pressure over parts of the Pacific Ocean. As the wind is reversed, the water close to South America becomes warmer, and there is increased wind towards South America with heavy moisture causing rainfall. This stops the upwelling of cold water close to the South American Pacific coast. There are other more elegant ways to write this, but it's important you talk about the change of wind, the change of sea temperature, the change of rainfall, at least. So the next question about El Niño says you should list 3 effects of El Niño and also important where these effects occur. And this again leads back to section 2.6 in syllabus. And I'll said that there's reduced upwelling and fewer nutrients in the Eastern Pacific. There's a lower fish catch due to a smaller primary production due to the lack of upwelling in the Eastern Pacific. There is a higher rainfall and possible flooding in coastal areas in the Eastern Pacific, and there's a lower rainfall and possible brush fires in the Western Pacific, specifically Australia. Our last question goes into migration routes of bluefin tuna, but the first question has nothing to do with bluefin tuna. They simply ask you to identify the main ocean where this migration occurs, and that's Pacific. And then they show us the Sea of Japan, and they ask us to describe how is a sea different than an ocean. There's 2 points, so you have to come up with these 2 things. Now I'll say, well, a sea is a smaller body of water. It is closer to land, or in this case here, particularly close by land, and they can be found within oceans. But just 2 of them will be enough to get the point. The last question is a big one, 6 points. So now we really got to find a lot to write. And they ask, discuss how and why bluefin tuna migrate. Now, I looked at the answers that Cambridge suggests are good answers, and I don't totally agree with all of them, but let's go for it anyway. So how do tuna migrate? Well, tunas can navigate the ocean by using different senses. I totally agree there. There's no doubt that tunas use olfactory and smell to locate locations. But I also mentioned the other ones here because these are the ones the books mention. They also mention magnetism, the ability to sense that, mental maps and landmarks, and location of sun, moon, and stars. Why do tunas then migrate? Well, tunas have the spawning grounds in the Western Pacific Ocean, close to Japan. So they migrate to other waters to find more food and to avoid predation. And then they migrate back when they become sexually mature to the same spawning waters, which will increase their chance of successful reproduction.